What's up, fantasy champions? Spotlight Sports Network is excited to tell you about an amazing deal from Thrive Fantasy, your place for daily fantasy sports and esports. Right now with promo code SS Network, Thrive Fantasy will match up to $50 of your first deposit. So go to thrivefantasy.com and sign up now with promo code SS Network. That's thrivefantasy.com, promo code SS Network. Do you like the Oakland A's? Are you a fan of the Golden Knights? Do you love the Los Angeles Chargers? Well then, my friend, you're in the right place. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show with your host, Jake the Snake Silva, brought to you by the Spotlight Sports Network.
Well, all right, everybody, and kicking off a brand new episode in 2021. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. We are live tonight on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. Really appreciate all of you guys stopping on by. We have a lot to talk about. And I've got my plate full here today because, well, you know, there's always a lot of excitement in, you know, the world of the NFL. We all know that, right? There's a lot of good moments. There's a lot of heartbreaks. There's a lot of confusion, questions, and so much more. But I'm very glad to be here with all of you guys. What's going on, Minneapolis? What's going on, Eckler Fan? What's going on, Sacred and Charles Fay? Yeah, you missed the last episode. Well, that's okay. Hey, we're here with a brand new episode in 2021. I hope all of you guys have had a great new year. And as we're kicking this new year off in style, well, we got a lot to talk about, especially with one in particular that I really want to get into because, well, pull up a chair and relax, and because I'm going to be telling you a little bit about a story about a man who stole football. Yeah. Yes, the NFL has their own Grinch, and I wonder who that is. Oh, he's the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Oh, his name's Doug Peterson. Here's one thing that a lot of people are freaking out about because Twitter was on a complete rampage. I mean, they were just ravaging it and so much more. And we heard it from a lot of people. We heard it from a lot of analysts like Stephen A., Max Kellerman, you know, and even Joe Judge, the head coach of the New York Giants. We heard it from everybody about Doug Peterson, his antics in Sunday night's game against the Washington football team. Yes, this is now the story about how Doug Peterson stole football from Jalen Hurts. You know, and Jalen Hurts, you know, he's Cindy Lou Who, right? Because she's supposed to be the one who spreads the joy of Christmas and who sees the best in the Grinch. And apparently Jalen Hurts was supposed to be the juice for the Philadelphia Eagles to winning games. Because unfortunately, Carson Wentz, it seemed like there was a lot of inconsistencies. But instead, the Grinch, as we all know here in the NFL and in the Philadelphia organization, is Doug Peterson. We all understand now what the real problem is with the Eagles. It ain't Carson. It's not Jalen Hurts. It's not even Howie Roseman. Not even Jeffrey Lurie, even though he's the higher up. It should be seeing this. But Sunday night's antics by Doug Peterson pissed everybody off, including yours truly. Because what the hell was that? The fact that you benched Jalen Hurts in a position where you could have won the game. You could have been winning the game against Washington. And by the way, Washington and Alex Smith was not 110%. And he was hurt. Washington, they have a really good defense, but offensively, they can't really score consistently. And at this point, there are a few takeaways that you can think of with this. Because the Giants were in a position where they beat Dallas. Dallas's hopes of making the playoffs are long gone. And the Giants had an opportunity to make it into the playoffs if Philadelphia did a job and beat Washington. Well, I didn't even know that there was this ongoing rivalry between the Giants and Eagles. Did you? I thought it was mostly about, Dallas and Philadelphia. And, well, when you come from a division like the NFC East, you're pretty much the lowest of the low, unfortunately. But now we all know how we feel about Doug Peterson, right? We all know how we feel about it. And every single one of the people who commented, Jake, stop defending Carson Wentz. He's the reason why Philadelphia can't win games. But was it really Carson Wentz's fault for all of the moves that Philadelphia has made all season long? Not to mention, you have an unhealthy offensive line. And it's one of the worst things that you could possibly, talk about if you're a Philadelphia Eagle fan. But the truth is out. The truth is out that Doug Peterson has been the problem for Philadelphia. And yeah, and listen, it's not like it was a big deal in that division because everybody in the NFC East was really not playing competitive. They weren't playing competitive like Arizona or the Rams or Seattle, or you go down south where you have the Saints, the Bucks, a lot of these teams in the NFC. But the NFC East, they're not as competitive. But either way, as I've said this before, because Carson Wentz, Philadelphia was done with him since 2017. Because they decided to build this big statue with Nick Foles, Mr. Senior one-year wonder, all because of a successful Philadelphia special, right? You decide to end up putting a statue after a Super Bowl win. What happened in the last couple of seasons since then? You really didn't act upon this the right way. Let me ask you something. You think Bill Belichick, when Tom was in New England, would have pulled off an antic like that to Tom? Absolutely not. He would have literally just said, we're playing it all to the best of our extent. He wouldn't have turned around and said, Jarrett Stidham's a really good kid. I felt like he earned some snaps. All you're doing is just fibbing to yourself and you're fibbing to others. Like, it blows my mind. And it's absolutely ridiculous and it's absurd. And I think it's the most embarrassing thing if you're Doug Peterson. The fact that you bench Jalen Hurts. Now Jalen Hurts understands why Carson Wentz is pissed and why he's demanding a trade out of Philadelphia. Because in the end, Doug Peterson was not the successor for Carson Wentz. Frank Reich apparently was. And we can go on for days and days, but at least all of us now know the real truth. Philadelphia apparently has a Grinch, and that's Doug Peterson. And he stole football away from Jalen Hurts in a position where they could have won the game, but instead you bring in a kid like Nate Sudfeld because why? Doesn't make any sense. I mean, I get it. If it's one, you're trying to piss off the Giants for one. But at the same time, if that was any other coach in this league, your reputation would have been burnt. And you would have never been respected in this league. It's unfortunate for Philadelphia
because of the fact of injury plagues, inconsistencies. Nobody apparently seems to be up on the same page. And then what's worst of all is you have Doug Peterson, who makes an antic like this, and it's not making the solution any better. It's now making the entire issue worse, because now Wentz wants out. Are you going to be willing to eat that $59 million cap hit? If that's the case, I mean, listen, I'll tell you, you'd be lucky or blessed enough that Indianapolis would take a guy like Carson Wentz with the offensive line that they have, retain 50% of that salary, and then get at least a couple of draft picks in the middle of it. But are you willing to be able to make that kind of sacrifice? And at the same time, players, apparently, they're going to lose that locker room. That's what's going to be unfortunate for Doug. But I don't know about you, but a lot of people ended up sounding off on it. I mean, if you look back, my colleague, Darian Hopkins of the Spotlight Sports Network, he went off on it. Ended up watching a little bit of First Take with Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith. And he has a take on that. Definitely check it out. But he had a lot to say about that, because Max Kellerman did point out the one thing that's valid. Joe Judge had every right to speak out amongst it. Let me tell you something. The difference between Jerry Jones and Joe Judge is that Jerry is afraid to admit he has his own problems. He's afraid to admit that Dallas is really not that good. They're really not that good. You know, unfortunately, they lost Dak Prescott, and then they lost their whole secondary. It's amongst the worst. And here's the thing that Joe Judge is trying to speak out, and it's not just because of his team. It's thinking about from one coach to another. Would you really pull off an embarrassing antic like that? For what reason? If you're going to lose in the best way possible. Don't just pull a quarterback out because it felt like, well, he deserves snaps. We haven't even seen so much of Nate Sudfeld play. So what's the point of that? And you already know what the story is in Philadelphia between Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz, because a lot of people kind of dropped the ball and they bailed on Carson. And I, for one, had defended him all season long. And now at this point, this gives me more of a validation of why to defend Carson Wentz, why he's pissed, why he wants to be out of Philadelphia. And there's the reason. So Philadelphia's got a lot of work to do, and it's unfortunate, but Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie, they're going to have a busy time discussing about this one. But I'm just telling you right now, if nothing's being done about Doug Peterson, this is going to be really, really ugly. This is going to be very ugly. It's not going to work out well. But all right, let me just tell you about this, because now the NFL playoffs are officially underway. We've got weekend games. I'll be doing play-by-play commentaries as well this weekend, so you don't want to end up missing that. We'll have 3 games on Saturday and 3 games on Sunday. It's a wild card packed weekend. I'm excited for it. But, I looked at all these teams in the playoffs, and it's interesting because there are a couple of takeaways. There are some teams that are red hot going into the playoffs. There are some teams that I'm kind of skeptical about. They're a little bit slow. But I think this will be interesting. I think this will be very interesting to see in the playoffs. But I can already tell you who my red hot teams are. I think the Bills right now are red hot. I think Tampa right now seems to be the red hot team. So it's kind of, it's kind of interesting how you can see it. But when I look at these matchups, it's going to be very interesting. So let me just kind of break this down. The Colts and Bills. That's going to be an interesting matchup because you got the best defenses. But remember, Josh Allen's having an MVP caliber year. And I'm not sure how Indianapolis I'm not sure how they have the blueprint printed out for Josh Allen. Not sure exactly what the strategy is. What's going on, Jay in the Bay? Shout out to our good colleague here on the Spotlight Sports Network who has got everything covered for San Francisco 49ers content. Definitely check him out. But I do feel like the Bills, they are the red hot team. Now, it's going to be interesting to see the Rams and Seahawks, but I feel like the Seahawks offense just hasn't been the same. The Bucs right now are the red hot team. I don't think Washington, they get themselves into the playoffs. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to pan out, especially when you got an offense that's not really consistent, but you do have a really good overpowering defense. And the Ravens and Titans. The Ravens right now seem to be the red hot team. They started to win some games here and there. Lamar Jackson's looking a little better, but it will be interesting to get some payback against Tennessee, wouldn't it? Because think about it last year. Tennessee embarrassed Baltimore on the road in Baltimore. So I'm sure there's payback in there. And then they got the Saints and the Bears. And honestly, I just don't think that the Bears are that prepared against the Saints. It's not just Drew Brees. But you have to think about how this season has been for the Chicago Bears. Everybody wants to be sold on the fact that Mitch Trubisky can still play. I don't know. It took late in the season to really get things going and make it work. And Chicago's trying to make a case for themselves that they can make Mitch Trubisky work. But I don't know. I don't really know about that. And then, of course, news that hit between the Browns and Steelers is now Kevin Stefanski got hit with COVID. And so Cleveland's in a tough spot because now they're facing Pittsburgh again. And so this is going to be tougher for Cleveland. And we didn't wish any bad upon Cleveland. We wanted Cleveland to succeed. But there were times where Cleveland just didn't get it. Well, now they have. But it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out with the Browns. And honestly, in my personal take, and in my opinion, Cleveland may have their money set against Pittsburgh and possibly upset Big Ben and all them. But you may be right. It may be terrible luck for the Browns. But this will be interesting. This will be interesting to see. But if you had to ask me what my red hot teams are, I think the Bills, I think the Bucs, I think the Ravens. Bits and pieces of me are still kind of skeptical about Saints. The Bears right now, I don't know what to think of them. I don't even know what their identity is. The Titans, they're a good team, but even at the same time, there's been a little bit of a slowdown. Now, I'm not sure what I'm going to get out of Tannehill and Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is a badass running back, but I'm not sure what I'm going to get with it. But I think the only game that's kind of just, whoever wins it best, they make it through is the Rams and the Seahawks. Because, of course, the two teams who are waiting for the opportunity is the Packers and the Chiefs. And the Chiefs, remember, Chiefs have been having some issues with the red zone offense. And I'm not sure if I can trust it, fully. But there has been some complications. Packers, though, too, they've been red hot. They've been proving their cases. The defense has been getting better late. But all I can say is this wild card weekend, it's going to be one wild ride. I think this is going to be fun. Coming up next, I'm going to be talking a lot more on the NFL because there are some head coaching vacancies that I think from most popular to least attractive. I'll be explaining exactly what are some ideal fits for each of the teams that have vacancies. I'll explain about that coming up next. By the way, for all of our fantasy football, from all of our fantasy challengers up out there, you love winning cold hard cash, and especially when you can go on to thrivefantasy.com. And here's what's best about this. Because when you sign up, download the app, use promo code SS Network, short for Spotlight Sports Network. When you put in $20 in your first deposit, Thrive Fantasy promises to match it up to $50 in your first play. And you can be playing all different sports, including esports. You don't want to end up missing the best deal on Thrive Fantasy. Definitely check it out.
What's up, fantasy champions? Spotlight Sports Network is excited to tell you about an amazing deal from Thrive Fantasy, your place for daily fantasy sports and esports. Right now, with promo code SS Network, Thrive Fantasy will match up to $50 of your first deposit. So go to thrivefantasy.com and sign up now with promo code SS Network. That's thrivefantasy.com, promo code SS Network.
But I know that's just in my mind. I know everything is just in my mind. Do you really want to be famous? Do you really want to be a superstar? Do you really want to get dangerous? Do you even know where the groupies are? Bitches out here be...
Welcome to Hammer's House.
So, of course, folks, we got a lot of really good shows and, of course, a lot of our really, really good colleagues here on the Spotlight Sports Network, as you've seen. And Hammer's House has been introduced here to the Spotlight Sports Network. And our good friend Jeff Hammond, a.k.a. Hammer, with his Hammer House show that he's got here on the Spotlight Sports Network. Definitely check him out. Give him a subscription as well. And tune into some of his up and coming shows. He's got some really, really good stuff. And of course, our good friend, Gang Green David, for all of your New York Jets content as well. We got a lot of really good stuff. And you know what? This is going to be a really, really good year. This is going to be a really, really good year. And I'm very positive about this because, as I've said before, we have a potentiality where we'll be able to have a media company be here for the Spotlight Sports Network. We're still discussing some of the up-and-coming moves, so definitely stay tuned for it. But it's going to be some brand new exciting stuff. I'm really excited for this. So, you know, a lot of these head coach vacancies, as you know, the Jets are looking for a head coach. The Texans are looking for a head coach. The Chargers are looking for a head coach. The Jags right now are looking for a head coach. There's a lot of vacancies here in the NFL. But these are where we kind of list these from least attractive to most attractive. And if you ask me, because you have to think about altogether, you know, some of these places, because of course the most important thing is the owner and the general manager very trustworthy? The other question that you have to ask yourselves is this team really built for success? And do they have the right pieces stored to where when the next head coach comes in, it actually would be a better building process for them coming in? And I think it's very interesting. And of course, you know, reports have said that Nick Caserio the former Patriots intel has joined the Houston Texans as their newest GM. So congratulations to Nick Caserio, and hopefully wishing the absolute best for the Texans because they got a lot of work to do. They've got a lot of work to do. They have got to fix that offensive line. And they've got to help Deshaun Watson. They've got to end up getting him some weapons and so much more support. And at the same time, they got to have a head coach that's willing to move forward with them. So it'll be very interesting to see from here. But of course, looking at all these coaching candidates and where it will fit best. So let's start here real quick with some of the jobs. Because, of course, as we said before, the Houston Texans, with their head coaching job, and now having Nick Caserio, the one thing he's going to focus on is definitely helping Deshaun Watson and helping the offensive line, especially someone who comes from a New England system and their personnel. There's going to be really good experience to be brought into the building to making this organization a winning culture instead of a losing culture. And I think, to me personally, because there were a lot of talks, but I seriously think Eric Bieniemy would be a perfect fit for Houston, because how this works for the offense. Bieniemy put up 30 points for the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs offense has been unstoppable. It's ridiculous, but the one big thing is that you can look at with Bieniemy. He's got the quarterback in Deshaun Watson. The only thing they'll need wide receivers, they'll need weapons, and they'll need an offensive line. And so I feel like Caserio coming in is willing to make that happen. And I think at the same time, it's good because at the very least, they're going to end up, it'll put them back up on the map as being a competitive team. Because think about it. J.J. Watt already spoke his mind about what Houston has become. And it's been sad. It's been sad for the city of Houston, and it's been sad for Texan fans because they've been waiting to get competitive, but yet always fall short. So I feel like Bieniemy would be a very, very good fit. Now let's go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Okay, the Jags, 1-15. They fired Doug Marrone. They're also looking in the they've also got themselves a general manager. And even at the same time, this has not been a winning culture for all these years. It hasn't been. They only had a couple times where they were competitive. They made it into the playoffs, but never truly got that far. They only got to the AFC Championship game in 2017 and then lost to New England because, well, Saxonville just got cocky. And so the only fit that I think of for Jacksonville would be Urban Meyer. And the reason for Urban Meyer, he's very respected in Florida, two-time national championship coach at Florida, and then, of course, winning one in Ohio State. But Urban Meyer is a recruiting-minded type of coach, and he's willing to end up bringing in his staff as well. That's what's going to be the added plus for Jacksonville. And not to mention, too, Jacksonville's got the number 1 overall pick. And you already know who they're going to go with. They're going to go with Trevor Lawrence, a transformative talent unlike any other we've seen. And at the same time, they're going to build the absolute best potential. And I think it'll be great. I think it would be absolutely great. And, of course, being in Florida, very respected, he has a lot of connections. And that's why I think it would put Jacksonville right up on the map. They will not be competitive right away, but give this puppy 2-3 years. And I think Jacksonville will be right back to where they are, and maybe they'll build a winning culture. How about the Los Angeles Chargers? Okay, Anthony Lynn gets fired after 4 seasons. And it's unfortunate because, listen, Anthony Lynn is respected around the league. The problem of it is he just got out-coached way too much over the whole season. And in the last 2 seasons, to be exact, because the first 2, we went 9-7, went 12-4, and it seemed like things were kind of getting competitive, and it seemed like the Chargers were going to be up on the map. But then the last 2 seasons, he underachieved. He underperformed. And it's unfortunate for a guy like Anthony Lynn, but it needed to happen. Now, of course, reports are that the Raiders are currently talking with Gus Bradley, the defensive coordinator, and potentially bringing him aboard to the Raiders system. Now, that's what's going to be the one factor for the Chargers. Is now, if that happens, how exactly are they going to shape their staff? Because I'll tell you one thing, Shane Steichen's not going to go anywhere. He's been able to lead the offense to be the 7th best offense in the league. So the offense is fine. And at least Justin Herbert trusts one person in that office. And that's what's going to help him. That's what's going to help him develop. So if I had to think of someone, and I've been leaning toward this one as well, that I think would be a perfect fit. And I think Brian Daboll would do just the job. Listen, hear me out. Brian Daboll's been around the NFL for a long time. Well respected. Not to mention, he's won a national championship with Alabama with Nick Saban. And he's got some, he's got a lot of experience on his belt. And this was before taking the job in Buffalo. And here's also what's a great takeaway. Nobody paid attention to Josh Allen, not even in college. But Brian Daboll came into a system with Sean McDermott and brought the absolute best out of Josh Allen to where we're seeing him where he's putting MVP caliber numbers this year. And they're the red hot team going into the playoffs. My biggest thing is nobody saw Justin Herbert play his tail off the way he has this past season. That's the thing. If you bring in Brian Daboll, and Daboll will take Steichen under his wing, show him the ropes, probably bring the best out of Shane Steichen, and at the same time, bring the best out of Justin Herbert on a level we all would have never imagined. Hell, like I said, Justin Herbert is going to be the complete roadblock preventing Patrick Mahomes from winning multiple Super Bowls. I mean, even 3 in a row. It's not going to be that easy for Kansas City, at least not up to this point. Not especially with how the red zone offense has been playing the last 4 weeks. But imagine that. Brian Daboll coming in. This league has become very pro offense, been very pro quarterback. It's been very pro weapons. And that's just the way that it's looked. That's the way that it's become in this league. So I feel like Brian Daboll would be exactly the perfect candidate. And then, of course, you have the New York Jets. The New York Jets right now, they are needing some serious juice. And it's unfortunate because of the fact of the situation that they are put in. Now, they are stuck in the number 2 spot. They could have had the number 1 overall pick because what would have happened? They would have got a lot of trade pieces from Sam Darnold. They would have gotten Trevor Lawrence, and they would have gotten the ideal coach. But because things have shaped the way it has, that's now where they sit. So the Jets have some serious discussions to make because they're sitting there with that number 2 pick, and you can make a decision whether you keep or you trade away Sam Darnold. But I'm going to tell you right now, you keep Sam Darnold, the best fit that I could tell you is trading away the number 2 pick to at least a team that needs a quarterback. Because there have been a couple of teams, they're not sold on their quarterbacks. Look at Minnesota, for instance. Minnesota's not sold on Kirk Cousins, and he's underachieved this year. I don't care what anybody says. He's completely underachieved. And I think Minnesota would be in that position where they're going to need a quarterback. By the way, New Orleans, from what I'm being told, Drew Brees is probably going to be set to retire after this season, and respectfully so. They possibly may need a quarterback, potentially, depending on what happens with Taysom Hill. Or there are a couple of others that are out there, ones that definitely need a quarterback. But I guarantee you that if you trade away this second pick, get an overhaul of picks in return, and shape your offensive line, maybe it'll do Sam Darnold some good. Either that, or you trade Sam Darnold, you get some picks in between, but it's not going to be as valuable as you think. Because think about it. Adam Gase didn't really end up bringing the best of Darnold. He completely went downhill. And that's what's going to be tough about trading him. Because at the same time, if they draft Justin Fields, I mean, it'll be very interesting. Nothing against Justin Fields. But remember, you've got to have the capable coach in line. So there are a couple of real good suits for the Jets, because the biggest one that they want is Eric Bieniemy. Because if you think about it, Bieniemy putting up 30 points for Kansas City all year long with their offense. And the Jets, their offense and their point differential is last in the league. They need serious juice, especially in a city like New York. New York has not had any juice whatsoever in the state. They haven't. They're waiting for a team to get competitive. The Giants are questionable because think about it. I mean, Joe Judge, I think, is a heck of a coach. I think he's a really good heck of a coach. I like Daniel Jones, and he's kind of improved. He's stopped a little bit of those turnovers. But there's still a little bit more work to be done with the Giants. But if the Jets make the right moves, this is where Joe Douglas, this is his time to shine. And if the Jets front office let Joe Douglas make the changes to turn this organization around, then maybe New York will no longer be a laughingstock. And this is the opportunity in the time to shine. So I'm just loving this coaching carousel, to be honest. I'm really loving this coaching carousel. I mean, I think it's exciting because there are a lot of attractive jobs out there. There are a lot of attractive jobs in many various organizations. And like I said, I think the Chargers job is very attractive. I think the Jaguars job's attractive because, you've got the number 1 overall pick, and I'm pretty sure they're going to end up using it on Trevor Lawrence. That's no question. So you've got options. You've got plenty of options in front of you. Now it'll vary on how these options really work out and such. But at the same time, I mean, you kind of know exactly where I stand from here. But I can't wait for it. But again, the Chargers are in a position where they want to win now. The Jets want to be back up on the map. They don't want to be a laughing stock anymore in this league. The Jags, they just need to build a winning culture. And then you got the Falcons, the Detroit and Houston. Houston just needs a head coach, and they need an offensive line. And now having Nick Caserio in the middle of the mix, hopefully that'll change up for Houston. But all right, time now for the hot press.
This is the hot press.
All right, so there were a lot of stuff that was going around here on the hot press today, but let's just see exactly. But by the way, congratulations to Devontae Smith from Alabama, as he was listed as the Heisman Trophy winner. And Devontae Smith, evaluating on his performance this year, he had 105 receptions, 1,641 receiving yards, and 20 receiving touchdowns during his tenure with the Crimson Tide. And he's the first wide receiver to have ever won this award since Desmond Howard did it in Michigan back in 1991. And so this is kind of interesting. We've never really seen this in the college football world where the wide receiver wins the Heisman Trophy. But congratulations to Devontae Smith. I think he'll be a huge, valuable pick when it comes to the wide receiver depth. I think he'll be very impactful depending on the offenses
Because if you put him in a successful system where the offense can generate points, I think it'll work out very, very well. But great stuff. Also, too, as we mentioned, the Cleveland Browns, they're going to be without their head coach, Kevin Stefanski, after being tested positive for COVID. And they're getting ready to be prepped up for their this weekend's matchup against Pittsburgh Steelers, and they're facing them again. Now, of course, they've got now they do have their backup, their interim head coach to be just basically filling in for a spot. But this is unfortunate. And the Cleveland Browns have had such a successful season, and it's about damn time. But now they're hit with yet another challenge. And the only person that I can think of who's getting challenged the most is Baker Mayfield. Because Baker has had a bunch of challenges where he's had Hugh Jackson, then Freddie Kitchens, then Kevin Stefanski, and now Kevin Stefanski's got COVID, and now he has an interim head coach. And now he's got to figure out a way to really make this work. And remember, Baker is not very solid when it comes to pressures on his shoulders. It's true, because, nothing against Baker. There's, nothing at all against Baker. But I'd be very interested to see how this works for Cleveland. I still think Cleveland has a chance to really win this game, but you have to think about it. This is the third time Cleveland's facing against Pittsburgh, and it's in Pittsburgh. I don't think it's going to be that easy for Cleveland to really nab a win, especially with all these complications. But that's just the one person I'm going to be paying attention to with all of these utter dysfunctions and with all of these, this is where Baker Mayfield's got to be the captain of the ship and steer them out of chaotic waters to lead them to victory. So expect Baker Mayfield to have a lot of pressure on his shoulders, and I'm very interested to see how he handles this type of chaos. But I would expect more of that run game to be very competitive. Also, too, the Hall of Fame has been announced for the 15 finalists, as, of course, Peyton Manning and Charles Woodson lead the list amongst these candidates. So, Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson, and there are a bunch of others that are also in the middle of this mix. And, of course, some notes like Calvin Johnson and, of course, defensive end Jared Allen. Now, I looked at this list multiple times, and it's stacked. The only thing is, I love Megatron. But think about it this way. You have Torrey Holt, and Isaac Bruce is already a Hall of Famer. And Torrey Holt was just before Megatron. I thought he was a hell of a receiver in St. Louis. And with him in that tandem with Isaac Bruce was ridiculous. So it's kind of hard for me to really because again, I'm all on board for Megatron making it into the Hall of Fame. Do not get me wrong, but we can't forget about some of these guys like Torrey Holt and and some of these other receivers that have been around. But of course, with all these others, you have Rondé Barber, Tony Baselli, Leroy Butler, Alan Faneca, Torrey Holt, John Lynch, Clay Matthews Jr., Sam Mills, Richard Seymour, Zach Thomas, and Reggie Wayne. Now that's another name, Reggie Wayne, because Marvin Harrison is already in the Hall of Fame. And I thought Reggie Wayne was very, very competitive as a wide receiver. So you've got so many options. But I love this list. I absolutely love this list. All right, and finally, so the Rams are getting ready for their matchup against the Seattle Seahawks. Now, the problem of it is, of course, Jared Goff was out this past weekend due to a thumb injury, and that's where Wolford ended up coming in as backup, and they still managed to win the game. Now, Sean McVay did end up adding that he's not going to make an announcement just yet of who the starting quarterback is. He did say this: I'm not going to make an announcement on who is starting and who is not. I'm not going to answer that question this week. Because as I said, it was unfortunate with Jared Goff to go down with that type of injury on his throwing hand. But John Wolford came in a big way. Now, Wolford, I know nothing about him. I know nothing about other than the fact that he worked in an equity firm. That's about it. I don't know what the deal is with that. But the only hope for Rams fans is that Jared Goff does come back healthy. Because if that's the case, the only hope that I can think of is that at least there'll be some consistency. But Russell Wilson's going to have his hands full with that Rams defense. He's going to have his hands full with Michael Brockers and Aaron Donald. The offense just has not been as solid the last few years, and it kind of scares you for Seattle fans. But I'm not sure. I think it'll be very interesting to see, but we'll wait to see exactly what the news will be. And hopefully it'll be good news for Rams fans if they get Jared Goff, but if they don't, it'll be unfortunate. But alrighty, folks. Well, that was your hot press. All right, coming up, as you always know, this is my favorite segment, and it's also the last official segment of the NFL season as well. My top 5 winners and losers of Week 17. And that'll be it for the regular season, and we'll be getting ready into the playoffs, and you don't want to end up missing exactly who I've got on the list. That's all coming up next. By the way, folks, I cannot believe that even during this new year, you haven't even heard of the newest deals that we've got going on with all of our merchandises. And we've got everything. We've got hats, t-shirts, hoodies. We've got masks. We've got mugs. We've got phone cases. You name it all. We have it here on the SpotlightSportsGear.com. And when you shop, of course, you'll get some added discounts. Definitely check it out today. And start your new year off with repping for the one network that's got you covered in sports. That's the Spotlight Sports Network. Rep the network and rep some of your favorite shows on the network here on the SpotlightSportsGear.com.
Welcome to the My City, My Game pod show featuring Raider J77, your place for all things Raiders and all things Trailblazers. Brought to you by the Spotlight Sports Network. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Now let's go.
Once a Raider, bruh, always a Raider, bruh. Shit simple as that. You look silver and black. Lot of bread invested in that old line. Car insurance cost an arm and a leg.
All right, folks. Well, first and foremost, I do want to end up appreciating having all of you guys on here tonight on the first episode of 2021. Man, what a way to kick off the new year, right? And I had a lot to say. I had an awful lot to say, especially with that antic with the with the Philadelphia Eagles and with Doug Peterson. Again, it's unfortunate with Carson Wentz and it's unfortunate with Jalen Hurts, but at the same time, I mean, they got a lot of work to do. But I really do appreciate all of you guys coming on here. And as I've said, if it's your first time, definitely like, subscribe, and hit the bell button for all future shows on the network, and of course here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Really do appreciate all of you guys stopping by, and definitely catch up on the show. So my best for last, and the last time of the season, but I have it. My top 5 winners and losers of Week 17, and man, it's really, really something else, because in the middle of this is what's going to determine the teams going into the playoffs. How I feel about, all these teams kind of coming in. So this is where I'm going to start off with my top 5 winners. And I think you'd be very, very intrigued with what my top 5 winners got to be. So here we go.
Rank them up. It's the top 5 winners and losers of the NFL week, according to Jake. Number 5.
All right, number 5 winner here I have in Week 17 is definitely the LA Chargers. Now, the reason that I have the LA Chargers is they're winners this week, because the fact of they went on a 4-game winning streak. And Justin Herbert, of course, is going to be the clear cut of being Rookie of the Year this year. I mean, there's no question. But this is what's going to be one of the most attractive jobs in the NFL, because of the fact of you got Herbert, you've got an offense. They may need to work a little bit more on the offensive line, and even at the same time, the defense needs to shape up. But I'm really liking with what the Chargers have done. Now, it is unfortunate with Anthony Lynn, he gets fired, but it had to happen, folks. I mean, the first 2 seasons seemed like it was solid, but in the end, he just got out-coached the last 2 seasons. And it's just not looking good. And that's not the direction you want to be in. And as a team that's ready to win now for the future, it had to happen. But I'm very excited for what the coaching vacancy will be for the Chargers. But again, I'm leaning more towards Brian Dable. By the end of the year, I think he'd be a beautiful fit, and I think you're going to see the absolute best of Justin Herbert next year.
Number 4.
All right, number 4 is the Baltimore Ravens. I think right now Lamar Jackson is getting himself geared up against a Tennessee team that, again, last year embarrassed the hell out of the Ravens. But Lamar Jackson in the last couple of weeks has actually looked better. He's looked much, much better. And listen, I know a lot of us have been saying he's very one-dimensional because of the fact that he can run the football. But he's been throwing the football actually much, much better. And I think that's also, accounts to his limitations. But it has been looking much, much better for Lamar Jackson in the offense. And I think Greg Roman's really working this out well. Now, there is a lot of pressure to Baltimore because of the fact that they've got to win playoff games with Lamar Jackson. And who knows? We're not sure with what this weekend can bring. But listen, if you're Tennessee right now, you would not be taking Baltimore that easily. They're starting to score up 30 points a game. So Tennessee better have an answer for them. Otherwise, I think Baltimore will finally be able to have that playoff win with Lamar Jackson.
Number 3.
All right, number 3 is the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers is clear cut of being MVP in this league. And the Packers defense has gotten so much better. Now, they got pummeled. They pummeled Chicago.
And Chicago right now just does not look like a playoff team. I don't even know what they are, and I'm not sure. You know, everybody wants to sell me on this thing that, oh, Mitch Trubisky's looking better and all. You're just trying to solidify that number 2 pick. That's what Chicago's trying to do. But Green Bay, I know what I'm getting with Aaron Rodgers, and I know what I'm getting with Devontae Adams. I think Green Bay, they are the toughest team in the NFC right now. But wait till you see the next NFC team that I'm actually kind of glad things are clicking right now. All right, number 2 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think Tom Brady and the wide receiving core has finally unleashed its offense. They have unleashed their true offense. And by the way, Tom Brady has stayed consistent. Okay, if you look at the numbers with his pass attempts, his yards, touchdowns, and less amount of picks, Tom's staying consistent. Regardless if you got Bruce Arians with this risk it no biscuit thing, but Buccaneers offense is finally starting to click, and they're utilizing everybody. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, Cameron Brate. Everybody is getting involved with Tampa. And right now, Tampa, they're the red hot team in the NFC. I mean, I'd love to see the championship game between Tampa and Green Bay. But this is where the rest of the NFC, they've really got to work themselves if they really want to be the most intimidating team in the NFC.
Number 1.
All right, the number 1 team, it's obvious. It's the Buffalo Bills. The Bills right now are the hottest team in the NFL right now. I mean, good God, they completely annihilated Miami this past week. And Josh Allen, he's putting up MVP caliber numbers. Stephon Diggs, I mean, this is a relationship that's meant to last for a long time. It's unfortunate with Minnesota, but Buffalo hit a slam dunk this year. The defense looks really, really good. Dave's White and Tremaine Edmonds. This Buffalo team right now, I'd hate to face them, for especially as red hot as they are. So that's my 5 teams: Chargers, Ravens, Packers, Bucks, and Bills as my winners. Now let's get to the losers.
Number 5.
All right, number 5 is the Kansas City Chiefs. I understand that they sat at least all of their starters here, but here's the thing. This red zone offense, man, again, that's the only thing that's scaring me with Kansas City right now. Now, I still do think they're a really good team. I still do think they are. But think about this. Buffalo is facing Indianapolis, one of their tough tasks. And I think Buffalo's going to be in a position where they're going to beat Indianapolis. I don't think the Colts defense is going to end up I don't think that the Colts are going to be prepared for Josh Allen and whatever they have in store. And not to mention, too, a lot is on the line with Phillip Rivers. So, you know, when it comes to Kansas City, if you're facing Buffalo next week, I mean, be prepared. Be prepared. That's the only thing that I can say. It'll be a very competitive game, but right now, Kansas City, they're going to have 2 weeks off. So this is going to be plenty of time for preparation and to fix some things up. But, again, that red zone offense, that's the only thing scaring me right now.
Number 4.
All right, the Miami Dolphins. It was unfortunate because of the fact of just how this season really played out for them. I mean, Tua, I have one troll on here who says Tua is better than Herbert. But let me ask you, how many times has Herbert been benched? Okay, Tua's been benched a bunch of times. Now, Miami, they've got a really good defense. And I think they've got probably one of the most trustworthy quarterbacks in Ryan Fitzpatrick. I just think that there are still some things that need to be adjusted with this team. But I just don't think this year was the playoff year. Even though I will say this was the most improved franchise this year.
So I will give them that positive nod, but again, I just think they kind of fell off short. But very interesting.
Number 3.
All right, number 3 is the Dallas Cowboys. Sorry, Cowgirls, but it's not playoff year this year. I don't even think it was anything in there that had playoffs written all over it for the Cowboys. Let me be honest with you, because obviously the offense looked better, but there is no Dak. Okay, you're dealing with Andy Dalton, who I think is a really good backup. He'll win you some games, but he's not the guy. He's not the guy. But here's the other thing, though, too. The thing that I have to say about Dallas, you already knew how this season was going to pan out anyway. The defense was going to be horrible. And you really think Dallas has enough firepower against other teams like Tampa or Green Bay, or let alone you're going to get pummeled and manhandled by Aaron Donald and the Rams. So, Dallas, they're the number 3 losers to me right now, because until they fix that secondary, until they fix that defense, and they get better with it. And from what I'm being told, Jerry Jones might be stepping down from his position, and you know what? That may just be the best thing ever to happen for Dallas. Because Dallas needs to be revived. Okay, they need to stop living in the past. Okay, listen, I wish Raider Nation would do that for the Raiders, but Dallas is a lot worse. So until they get their acts together and they actually figure out the real problem, that's just where I've sat with Dallas all year long. I've been saying that the defense is just not good enough. So, and that's the end result.
Number 3. Number 2.
All right, number 2 is the Arizona Cardinals. It's unfortunate. Listen, Kyler Murray's not ready just yet. I love Kyler Murray. I love what he's done this year. And I think Cliff Kingsbury just fell off a cliff this week. The offense didn't look consistent. It's just kind of unfortunate with Arizona. And here's the other thing, too. Say what you want to about Josh Rosen and all this other stuff, but Arizona's offensive line is kind of good. Why, for so many times, does Kyler Murray have to run for his life? Okay, listen. You know how many times Sam Darnold has to run for his life for the Jets? An awful lot. And when you look at Arizona, if you want to be the toughest team in the NFL, you've got to have the offensive line. And not to mention, too, the defense has to get better. Now, I know they got Isaiah Simmons. Who knows what will happen for him next season? But, however, the only thing that I can say about Arizona walking for next year, they've got to reshape that offensive line big time. I think they have the offenses. I think they've got a really good quarterback, but they're not quite ready for playoff caliber just yet. Not yet, but I think at some point they will be close. And finally, here's a number 1 for you.
Number 1.
Well, if it isn't the big old bad underachieved dogs, the Philadelphia Eagles, who just so happens to have a Grinch in Doug Peterson. They're my losers this week. What the hell were you doing, Doug Peterson? What the hell was going through your head when you made that move? Now we know what Philadelphia's dysfunction is. Obviously, it's coming from the head coaching position. And Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman have a lot to discuss about this. Because now you're dealing with this dilemma with Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is now starting to understand why Carson's pissed. And it's unfortunate because Jalen Hurts is supposed to be the guy that was supposed to be the juice for Philadelphia, at least in the positive ends. If you hadn't finished off the year, you can reevaluate. But I don't know what the hell, Doug Peterson was thinking. But yeah, it's kind of unfortunate for Philadelphia. But they're my losers. So that's my last top 5 winners and losers of this NFL season, guys. So in my winners, I've got the Chargers, Ravens, Packers, Bucks, and Bills. And then my losers are the Chiefs, Dolphins, Cowboys, Cardinals, and Eagles. Again, this is just respectfully. Now, it'll be very interesting to see how my top 5 winners and losers for this weekend will be. Well, maybe I'll actually shorten it to 3. Shorten it to 3. Because, of course, the playoffs, you got 3 wildcard games on Saturday. You got 3 wildcard games on Sunday. So it's going to be very interesting. But definitely stay tuned for tomorrow. I'm going to have a lot. I'm going to have some playoff predictions. I may talk a little bit more about the head coach vacancies. But tomorrow is definitely going to be a fun night. So thank you guys all for coming on by here tonight. And I will see you guys all tomorrow night. Take care.